My name is Sebastian. I'm working for Amazon Web Services. I'm tech evangelist, so my job is to talk to solution builders, people that are building solution, architects, developer, project manager in the cloud. The slides will be posted online. If you follow me on Twitter, Sebsto, S-E-B-S-T-O, in a few minutes you will be able to download the slides for today. So, congrats, you just launched your new application. Yeah, after months of hard work, your product is there available for your customer. As we say at Amazon, the day you're launching your product and your service, it's not the end of your project, it's the start of your project. This is where actually you can start to collect valuable feedback from your customer and you can start to iterate and improve the quality of your application. So, if you deploy your application in the cloud, you probably have a very typical architecture with a front-end web server or application server, a load balancer in front of them, a couple of database, master-slave to ensure the high availability of your application. I'm pretty sure you're quite familiar with this type of architecture diagram. And if you developed your own identity management system inside your application, you probably have an HTML form somewhere, CSS, HTML, and a MySQL table with a user table, with username, password. Does it seem familiar to you? That's a place where you've been probably before. I guess you did. So how do you scale from that, from 50 to 50 million users? How do you scale that architecture to actually support internet scale popularity, 50 million users? Maybe you think that 50 million users is not for you. Come on, I will never have 50 million users. Actually, I wish you will have. And how long does it take to actually reach 50 million users? Well, it depends. For telephony, it took 75 years to reach the first 50 millions of users. For TV, it took only 13 years to reach the first 50 millions of users. If you're on Twitter, it took them 9 months to reach 50 millions of users. Pokemon Go, 19 days. So previously, you had the time to scale. You had the time to call your hardware vendor and provision more hardware and maybe refactor your application, redesign things that need to scale. But how much refactoring can you do in 19 days to reach your first 50 millions of users? And on top of that, if you're managing your identity management solution by yourself, there is a ton of things that might possibly go wrong. Can you name a few? I will name a few for you. What about the scalability itself, the latency? The latency is the time it takes for a little piece of information to leave the application, to go to your server, to be processed by your server, and then to come back to your application. As you are scaling, latency is critical. At Amazon, we measure that every 100 millisecond latency that is added to the retail web page, Amazon shopping web page, we are losing 1% in sales. And Google is making the same measurement. If they add 500 milliseconds, half a second latency in the search result, it means 20% less traffic for them, which means also 20% less advertisement to show you. So latency is critical, but not only. Managing the availability of a simple system 24/7, it's complex. So what about a complex system with multiple dependencies, multiple databases, maybe multiple geographies? So being highly available, it's a full-time job to design and to maintain, to operate your system, and you certainly don't want to be in that list. You don't want your customer to not be able to use your application because your identity system is not available. What about regulation? There is a lot of changing regulation, and I heard the word GDPR many times already this morning in this room. But you are responsible to actually maintain the security of the personal information of the customer that you are storing, and not being compliant to all the rules and laws in all the countries where we do operate. It's a risk. You might risk a fine, but it's also a risk of losing reputation, and you don't want that type of article to be in the front news. What about the security of the data? If you have 50 million users, your password database will become a high target for hackers because customers, are reusing the same password from one system to the other. So trying to get your password database will be a highly valuable target for hackers. And you know that IT security is a cat and mouse game, so you have to try to stand one step before the bad guys and before the hackers. And by the way, how do you secure the password in your database? Are they stored in plain text, as we saw some companies are doing? Or maybe you use a hash and a salt, a password key derivation function. You don't know, the hackers will know, and they will know before you can realize. By the way, you can check if you have been pwned. I guess most of you knows that website, have I been pwned? You just type your email address there, and then you check in their database. There are 4 billion accounts that have been stored in more than 400 different databases. Sorry, 8 billion accounts that have been stored in almost 400 different password databases. And when I type my email address there, it's a fake email address, I see that, maybe I need to change my password on all these websites. And you don't want your company logo to appear on that list. The other things is that your customer value about feature, and user authentication is not a feature for your customer. It's a, I don't know, I was about to say something. No, it's not a feature for your customer. And developers, your developer like to build feature, and scaling an identity system, making your identity system secure, making your identity system highly available, it's not a feature. So if you can delegate that to someone else so that developers can focus on the things that make your application unique, that make your application stand out from the competition, that make your application valuable for your customer. This is where you can get added value from your development team. Maintaining an identity system is not your core business function. Don't do that. So we propose at AWS an alternative, which is to use identity management systems fully managed in the cloud, and we have a service to do that. It's called Amazon Cognito. So with Amazon Cognito, you don't need to install server, you don't need to install operating system, you do not need to patch operating system, you even don't need to manage a database or to back up the database. We are doing that for you. It's just a few clicks away from the console. You can integrate that inside your application and leverage the power of a fully managed service to actually delegate that part and focus on your application. We have thousands of customers that are using Amazon Cognito. Of course, we see them using them in a B2C scenario, an application, having customer and letting customer authenticate. But we see also our customer using Cognito to authenticate a business partner in a B2B scenario, or employees in a B2E scenario. And in this world where more and more devices are connected and sending information to your IT system, we not only need to manage the identities of users, but also of objects. So we have many customers using Amazon Cognito to manage the identities of the Internet of Things, the things that are connected to the Internet. When using Cognito, you can rely on built-in graphical user interface. You do not need to build your own screen. The easiest way is to use the web-hosted graphical user interface. We do implement the sign up, lost password, one-time password over SMS or third-party device flow. We have HTML component, but we also have high-order component for React, React Native, for Swift, for Android to include inside your application. And of course, you can fully customize them. But if you need more customization, if you want to implement your own flow, your own logic, your own screen, of course, you can rely on a low-level database, a low-level API that your application can ping into. One of my favorite features, and I will spend a bit more time on that, of Amazon Cognito, it's the ability to enable identity federation very, very easily with just a few clicks in the console. By default, we support login with Amazon, login with Facebook, login with Google. We do support Samuel 2.0, allowing you to integrate Active Directory and anything which is actually OpenID Connect. So identity federation, it's a quite basic requirement for all applications today. Probably will not launch an application today without any type of federation. But it's surprisingly hard to develop and to, especially if it is at scale, and to secure at scale. So having identity federation as a configuration with just a few clicks and just configuration, it can save you weeks of development and testing effort inside your application. So it will allow your developer to focus once again on the things that matters for your customer, which is your unique added value for your application. application, and not the low level, the undifferentiated heavy lifting, which is identity management. Many people do not totally understand identity federation. And the idea of identity federation is basically to say, hey, I will not authenticate the user here. Please go over there, authenticate over there, and come back with a token. And the token will be the proof that you authenticate over there. Trust is the key there. You need to trust the other party. But once you have that token, you can grant access to the application. What else can you do with that? Or let me take an analogy before. Someone mentioned government. I think it was you. You mentioned government. That's exactly what's happening. When I want to authenticate to an app, the app is not going to, or to an airline, for example, the airline will not verify my identity, checking my birth certificate and my parents' birth certificate. They are going to trust a token that has been issued by someone else. And that token is my passport, issued by my government, providing that you are trusting the government. So your passport, it's limited validity token issued by a trusted third party that you present to authenticate yourself at many different applications. But with that token, you can also get access to specific resource. An IT, a mobile application, needs to access to API, needs to access maybe to cloud-specific resource, such as file storage, Amazon S3, or database, Amazon DynamoDB. So how does that work in an identity scenario? You are going to exchange the token that proves your identity for an access token that proves that you have the right to access a specific resource. And you can do that with Amazon Cognito as well. It will exchange the token you receive from Google or Facebook or Active Directory for a token which will grant you or grant your application access to specific resource. Let me take another analogy for that. I like the hotel room analogy. The resource I would like to access is my hotel room, and the access control is the door of my hotel room with the lock. And of course, the door will not verify my identity using my passport. That would not be very convenient. But instead of that, I can exchange my government-issued token, my passport, for a limited token valid only for that system, valid only for that hotel. And that's the key card of my room. I go to the reception, they verify my identity, they verify my credit card, and they issue a time-limited, resource-limited, scope-limited access token, which is the key of my room. And then I can go to the door of my room, present that token, and if the token is valid, it will let me access to the resource. And this is exactly what happens in federated identities when you want to verify access to an API or to some type of cloud-based resource. We have many customers using Amazon Cognito. One example I like to share is the one from GE with the Health Cloud portal. So the Health Cloud portal from GE, it's a professional portal for radiologists and healthcare professionals to exchange, process, and view medical images about their patient. They have millions of devices exchanging data every day. They have more than 1 petabyte of image stored in the cloud. And one of the success factors of this application is that they decide to use identity federation from the start. So the clinician, the healthcare professional, the doctors can continue to authenticate using the hospital or the medical house system they used to, and they implement an identity federation between their organizational systems and the GE Health Care, the GE Health Cloud platform in the cloud. And they identify that as one of the adoption success factor of this application. So what are the things you're going to change today after attending this conference, maybe attending this call? I would like you to reconsider 2 things. One of them, do not develop your own identity provider. Unless you are Okta, OneLogin, ForgeRock, don't develop an identity provider platform. Reuse a managed solution from the cloud. And you have many choices. Amazon Cognito is just one of them. I mentioned Okta, OneLogin, ForgeRock, and there are many others as well that are available out there. But this does not bring any added value to your application. And the second thing I would like you to change is do not store personal information of your customer in the cloud. Do not store password in the cloud. Try to implement federated identities whenever it makes sense. It will reduce reduce the surface of attack. It will reduce the risk for you. I work with IKEA recently. If you have connected device, connected light bulb, throat-free light bulb from IKEA and using their app, they choose to not implement their own identity store, but to work with login with Amazon. If you have the IKEA app, you will be redirected to the Amazon website for the login solution. That's just one example of how large enterprise can leverage trusted third-party identity provider in the cloud. Thank you very much. Happy to continue the conversation with you, either live one-to-one after this or over Twitter, sebsto, SEB, Thank you.
We have a booth if anybody wants to learn more. Glad to discuss more about it with you.